Good afternoon, Tanti.
Rural Women's Assembly, viva! 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 Rural Women's Assembly, viva! Viva! Down with the corporate capture of agriculture, down! Down! Thank you, thank you. I just want to welcome you to our segment of the SADC People's Summit, where we are having discussions as Rural Women's Assembly. I just want to welcome everybody from the SADC countries and others who are joining us. Welcome to our meeting. And then can I call upon Comrade Mesha to give us the welcome remarks to this segment.
That was by surprise. So good afternoon, everyone. This is a continuation of a process of campaign of the Rural Women's Assembly. We have the program there and a guest speaker, and today we didn't simply want to use this as a moment of complaining about the corporate capture, because we know this is happening. And part of what we wanted to do today is to have a presentation on what is happening, and then for the women who are organizing themselves to begin to talk about what are their demands, why these demands, and then with you discuss how you think we build a common campaign. So the agenda is in front of us, and it's great that so many of you have joined us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Mesha. Thank you. As she was saying that we as the rural women farmers, as the farmers of this world, as the tillers of land, we are under siege. We are living in a world where agriculture has been captured. We are living in a world where we are struggling to feed our children, to feed our communities, but we are not recognized. A lot has been happening, a lot is happening, and a lot will continue to happen if we keep quiet about all these things. So as Rwa, we need to come up with a solid campaign to try and fight all these challenges that we are facing as rural women, as the farmers, as the feeders of the nation, as the tillers of the land. Let me call upon our own sister Nenzi Kachingwe to give us a presentation on agriculture is captured. This is captured by the multinational companies, the seed companies, the fertilizer companies. They've captured us. They've captured agriculture. Our government as well have been captured. Thank you, Comrade Nenzi.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Tanti. It's been a while. My last contact with Rural Assembly was quite a while ago, but I always have you close to my heart. So Mersha knows this when she asked me to do this presentation, but I'm really honored and so pleased, and to be in your company, even if it's on Zoom. But I hope everybody is coping and hanging in there, and I'm glad that we are continuing the struggle. I was asked to give a little bit around facts and figures. Unfortunately, I couldn't get as much as I would have liked to, but I thought maybe in terms of just going back to like how thinking about agriculture, how it is we got here, and where we are at now, in terms of trying to add some additional framing to the question of what we can do and how we shape and frame the campaign. campaign. So I hope this can be some kind of contribution and thinking through the campaign issues. And please ask me questions in terms of what I can contribute in it additionally and from what I know and the data that I can give. So to start with, just a little historical sweep. We're talking about the corporate capture of agriculture, but we must understand agriculture as having, agriculture has been always very much at the center of the imperialist project. So the reason slavery happened was to get labor to produce cash crops in the newly conquered lands of what we call Latin America and the Caribbean and North America. Sugar, coffee, tobacco, rubber, cocoa, cotton, even opium was a commodity that was the subject of an entire war between the British Empire and China. And timber. So all of these agricultural, we think about colonialism and imperialism and slavery in terms of the natural mineral resources, but we mustn't forget that equally important and what drove much of the Industrial Revolution was the extraction of these agricultural projects. So agriculture is really front and center of an imperialist and colonial project. So once slavery ended, we simply moved the sites of extraction from former slave colonies back to Africa, where the labor was there, the land was there, and the process continued. We mustn't forget, for example, when we talk about a banana republic, this is this is about this interface between imperialism, agriculture, and cash crop production, and extraction and accumulation. So we sometimes laugh and say, "Oh, banana republics," but it's a real thing. Banana republics, cotton republics. It's not. It's not exceptional. It's particularly interesting that things like sugar, coffee were very new to the West. They didn't have these products. Tobacco even was relatively new products. But much as I may love my cigarettes and my coffee, these are fundamentally pointless crops to be growing in a situation where we're talking about food sovereignty and food sovereignty and food security. So there's also an aspect of it where it's really about sort of keeping a wheel of consumption going with commodities that are really of not much utility. But that's where the template has come from. So when we're talking about corporate capture of agriculture, it's good for us to remember that history. In terms of post-independence or post-war era, it's important. Agriculture went through a new phase. So while much of the kind of plantation style agriculture was growing, there was a different kind of development model from what we know today under the sort of neoliberal hyper-capitalist model, where the issues that were confronting governments both in the North and the global South, which was newly independent, so in the 60s and 70s, that agriculture was again a key sector in many different ways. So first of all, of course, issues of national food security were even in post-war countries especially, where food security and food self-sufficiency were geostrategic issues. So agriculture was one of those areas that was very protected in most countries, including in the global South. So it was seen to be, critically important as an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, but also anti-domination for countries to have food self-sufficiency in agriculture and in food. So agricultural trade and agricultural sectors were protected. And even though there was continued export of various agricultural crops, there was also a concern in terms of using agriculture to be the launching pad for industrialization and import substitution. So, for example, if many developing countries started setting up textile industries, because you have the cotton, you have the labor, it's relatively low tech. It's relatively low tech. Technology to produce textiles. Countries have a tradition of that. So in many ways, agriculture was both seen as a food security issue, an export earner, but also an industrialization part and center of the an endogenous industrialization strategy. Of course, for newly independent countries to get their legitimacy in nation states that were largely agrarian, they had to have strong rural development policies. So these rural development policies were also fairly critical for political legitimacy, but also as part of the post-independence promises and as a way of trying to address the issues of poverty as a result of colonialism, and agriculture and land were really the areas where, with low education levels, an agrarian country, agriculture is where you're going to have your poverty eradication starting from. So there was, I don't want to romanticize anything, but I just want to sort of say that the policy perspective around agriculture did change, say during the course of the 60s and 70s, and even globally, questions of like trade, protection of agricultural trade was accepted across the globe, until we then went into sort of the 80s and 90s phase, where we had structural adjustment programs under the World Bank and IMF. Countries in the global south were finding themselves highly indebted. One of the reasons for this, if we want to talk about agriculture, is that the products that we were exporting, the prices were constantly going down on global markets. And so what we call the terms of trade were changing. So you have to keep on, for the same amount that you're exporting, you're getting less in foreign currency, but you're borrowing money that you have to pay back in foreign currency. So what you're exporting as the value of your exports falls, of course, your debt obligations and you have more and more of a debt crisis in terms of meeting your debt obligations. So it's important to bear that in mind in terms of the link between structural adjustment programs, indebtedness, and the global economic environment as relates to the commodities that countries in the global south, but in Africa in particular, were dependent on in terms of foreign exchange earnings. But another really big event that impacted agriculture was the start of the WTO and the conclusion of what's called the Uruguay round, and this brought in the agreement on agriculture. So in addition to structural adjustment programs where the IMF and the World Bank were saying, look, governments, you have to stop all of these subsidies and inputs to small farmers, you be competitive where you are, you can always import food because food is cheap. Why don't you concentrate more on cash crops? That was part of the narrative and the logic, and all of these parastatals you have that provide public financing and marketing, they're corrupt and they are
they're corrupt and they waste public funding. So rather let the market decide what people will grow and how it will be traded, and let's stop putting public money into this. And this really meant the start of a whole new era in terms of agricultural policy. So the results of that were clear. I mean, food security became much worse. Many small-scale farmers started, farming became less and less viable. Let's all agree that farming has never actually been that viable an enterprise. Even the largest agricultural companies benefit from state subsidies. So it's not that it's a particularly profitable enterprise by its nature. Then Europe and the US are the biggest subsidizers of agricultural production that there are. And then opening up to agriculture imports also meant the collapse of many agricultural sectors, as well as the industries that, in terms of an industrialization strategy, cotton, textile factories were closing down, and so farmers would now went back to exporting cotton as a raw material. So the value added disappears from those from that logic of growing raw materials, adding value, building industries so that you can create jobs for the population locally, and then export finished products or semi-finished products rather than raw materials. So in addition to that, I think we must also, around that time is when questions around land reform started coming in. But in the 2000s and 2010s, we really are now in a period of what's called hyper-globalization. It was made to sound like a great thing. We're in a global village. We have globalization, this was now a phase where everybody was in the game. China joins the WTO, so we all accept that this is going to be the model and the way the world is going to go. It was a short respite for African countries because China was now having higher and higher demand for minerals and raw materials from Africa. So it did give a little bit of a breather for African countries in terms of being able to export copper and other raw materials. But we did have the start of land reforms. So whereas much of communal land or land was nationalized, we were moving towards more privatization and liberalization. But then, so everything looks like it's going well. We were told it's the end, this is how it's going to be forever. And then we have a big financial crisis in 2008. And accompanying the financial crisis is a massive food crisis. So across the world, actually, as the financial crisis happened, stock markets moved from shares in companies to putting shares in food prices and commodities. And therefore, globally, prices of food skyrocketed, and there were riots from Mozambique to West Africa to Asia and Latin America over this impact on food prices. And by then, many countries have stopped being food self-sufficient to become net importers of food, including in Africa, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that was where we were. So even food prices were very volatile. We have agri, and we have the rise in agribusiness and biotech. So the debates from GMOs, of course, were not that, did not start then, but the whole question of agriculture coming back as a central cog in the sort of global capitalist machine we see it going becoming more and more central. Questions of land, questions of natural resources, questions of biopolitics. And so not only do you need the land and the labor, you also want to own the genetic material so that you can patent that, because you can extract profits from patents. And in the middle of all of that, of course, we're having the climate crisis coming up, and protests and worries about what this is going to mean for agriculture. But I think by then the dominance of transnational corporations in terms of the ideology, the policy ideas is very much established in the sort of global policy, and everybody is more or less having to say, okay, we accept this is the model, socialism is over, no state intervention, the private sector and the investors are the ones who are going to move things forward. So, and this is where we're now talking about what I think we could even think of as a new phase in the questions of corporate capture in agriculture. When it came to asking about what do you do, what do we do about, let me start again. We're now in the pandemic. Which direction do we go in? And we have to remember that agriculture is quite multi-dimensional. It's not the same as mining. We think about agriculture as food security. On the one hand, it's of material importance. We also think about agriculture as a means of self-sufficiency and political self-determination. And when we're talking about food sovereignty, that's exactly what we're talking about. But then for others, agriculture is about trade, as we had mentioned at the start of what I was saying. That this is about trade. It's about export earnings. It's about being part of the big global system, so it's about trade and profit and accumulation. And to a certain extent, now that we talk a lot about GMOs and seed sovereignty, it is about a certain kind of gene imperialism. I'm not sure what the official term for that is, but seeing not just the biological, being able to own production, but actually the genes, everything that's going into that production now that we have these biotechnologies and bioengineering that make it possible to be able to do it. So it's a new dimension again of agricultural imperialism. So where we are though is, in spite of all these other elements, it's the last two that are dominating. It's agriculture as trade, and it's about large investments, profits, extraction, integrating into global supply chains, and shifting from say food or low value crops to cash crops that are high value and earn more income or are more profitable. So the profit motive is what is dominating our agricultural policy as well. And even in terms of small scale farmers, the whole idea of contract farming is, of course, to integrate small scale farmers into these global supply chains and into this profit making machine. So rather than grab land from the small scale farmers and the peasantry, we just try and force them to grow the crops that we want them to grow. There is increasing local dependence on transnational corporations across the value chain. Again, this is part of the model when we were talking about inputs, seeds, finance, including microfinance, retail. So all through the value chain, we're all going to be part of this big profit-making machine. Those who can get something out of it will, those who can't will simply be exploited. And so the role of the Ministry of Agriculture, the question is, when we talk about agriculture, we should all be clear when we're speaking to our governments about like what they're thinking. The Ministry of Agriculture is more, if you look at their documents, they're much more concerned. They say food security, but they're much more concerned with agriculture as trade, not agriculture as food security or even self-determination. And so ministries of trade and investment and finance are much more important in terms of defining agricultural policy than a Ministry of Agriculture that simply implements that. And unfortunately, I think we're finding ourselves increasingly, I'm just going to conclude, in a place and space where this system has been pretty much locked in. And there was an interesting conclusion about industrial agricultural model from the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food System. And they said, you know, there are a number of lock-in mechanisms into this industrial agricultural model. They call the first one, they say, is path dependency. So everybody becomes dependent on the system and it continues to stay the way it is. It makes it much harder to move out of it. Export orientation, which we've talked about, it's a lock-in, we're locked into that. The expectation of cheap food. So the idea that, you know, if we have these models, it's not food security, but it's like food affordability. Short-term thinking, I'm sure we can see that with our governments, that, you know, we need to meet, whether it's for good or bad reasons, the pressure to meet certain deadlines, pay your debts by the end of the year, really drive policy in particular direction. These sort of feed the world narratives and green revolution narratives are part of this whole system of industrial agriculture and are pushing it. The way we measure whether we have success, so we look at total agricultural output and how much we earned rather than what's inside the quality. So even those measures of success globally, it's like, oh, you spent 10% of money on agriculture, wonderful. We produced so many more tons of maize this year or sugar. Those kinds of benchmarks do not favor our side of the equation. And of course, you know, the concentration and power, increasingly the question is to what extent are states able to shift direction, change direction. We are concerned that they are part of the problem and not part of the pollution, and not part of the solution. But the question then is also, if someone wanted to be part of the solution, how much space is there for them to shift this huge structure that is now put itself in place? So I just wanted to put those issues for the discussion on what's going on, and hopefully it can contribute to your strategy discussions, even if I know, sorry, Mersha, I had promised like more facts and figures and numbers, but we can do that next time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Comrade Nancy. She has highlighted a lot of issues, and it is as if she was part of our discussion yesterday. One farmer from Makoni mentioned that she said in her own words, these boys have failed us, and these boys are causing hunger and poverty in Africa. And then I said, how? Then she said, it is because of the kind of agriculture that they are recommending, the kind of agriculture they are forcing us to adopt. This is not what we want. And this is exactly what you have been highlighting, Comrade Nancy. And at this time, let me call upon anyone with comments, contributions, or questions to Comrade Nancy. You can show by way of raising your hands. I'm giving 10 minutes because we still have a lot of discussions to do. I cannot see any hands, so we can proceed. Thank you, Comrade Nancy. Let me call upon the country chapters who had some discussions yesterday to share with us what were the key asks they came up with to contribute to our submissions to the heads of states this year, to the chair of SADC this year. So I will start with Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much to MEC for the presentation. As the Zimbabwe chapter, we managed to meet yesterday. We did that in two ways. The other group physically met at a central point, and we had around 25 participants. And we also have representation from around the country, where the rural women are connected through Zoom. And after the in-depth discussions, we came up with key asks that we have to our government and to the region in general. And part of the asks that we raised include the issue of rejecting the issue of imposition of hybrid seats. So we're saying, as the Rural Women's Assembly, there's lack of consultation that results in exclusion of women in decision-making. For instance, this year, the government of Zimbabwe, through the Ministry of Lands, introduced Pfumvudza, that is conservation agriculture. And when we were discussing yesterday, we said the iron of it is that as the Rural Women's Assembly, we've been practicing conservation agriculture for the past, I don't know how many decades. But now the government of Zimbabwe is bringing in Pfumvudza as something that is new. But even though we accept them bringing that, but the challenge is that they didn't consult us as the farmers. They didn't consult the women who consult the bulk of the farmers in Zimbabwe. So we are saying no to that. We are saying no to imposition. They are rather, even under this, they are prescribing the inputs that they will give to the farmers. And this, of course, includes hybrid seeds. But as the Rural Women's Assembly, we are saying no, we want to promote our traditional seeds. No, we want to promote our traditional food. Then the other thing that we discussed is that the government of Zimbabwe is on record of politicizing projects like, for instance, I'll make reference to 2018. The government came to the people and the disguise that they were introducing a bank that would sponsor farmers under the name of the Women's Bank. But just after the elections, nothing more was heard about that. And even during that time, very little, if not any, of the smallholder farmers benefited out of that initiative. So what we simply saw is that the government was simply politicking. The government was simply using this as a gimmick for them to get votes. So as the Rural Women's Assembly of Zimbabwe, we are saying no, and we mean no to such tactics. Then we also said, as the Rural Women's Assembly, we are, and I mean we are, demanding 50-50 representation in decision-making. And if we are saying representation, it's not just representation, we mean effective representation. Because what has been happening previously is that they would handpick the women that they would twist around, the women that they would be controlling. But this time we are saying we want effective representation from the rural women. Then the other thing that we also discussed is about value addition. Remember when the lockdown measures were introduced around April, As rural women farmers, we encountered a lot of post-harvest losses. The reason behind that is that there is lack of equipment to process our produce. So we are saying the government, it's a demand from the rural women. It's a demand from us as the farmers who are feeding this nation to say the government should invest in value addition equipment to make sure that we don't continue to suffer, to make sure that our livelihood option is not put to danger, to make sure that our families should continue to live out of our sweat and effort. Then we also discussed in depth about effective social protection schemes. We are saying the government should have social protection schemes post this COVID-19. Then the other thing that we also raised was we were demanding an end to the brutal use of security forces, because currently we are seeing the heavy presence of police and the army, and these police details, they are on record of abusing women, and the women will be carrying out their normal day-to-day duties. For instance, you will be going to the market to sell your produce, or probably you are going to a health center. But when you meet with these police agents, they are on record of abusing women. And we are saying no to that. We are saying enough is enough. Then the other thing that we also discussed and that we strongly denounced, and we continue to denounce that, the issue of corruption. Corruption is the #1 enemy here in Zimbabwe. It has brought us to this position where we are suffering as citizens, but we are saying no to our leadership. We are saying no to corruption because it is making us suffer. Then the last thing that we discussed as women is that the government should come up with inclusive post-COVID-19 recovery plan, which should be people-driven. And when we're saying people-driven, as women, we should be in the forefront because we constitute the majority of this country. We constitute the bulk of the farmers. Thank you very much. Those are the issues that we discussed as the Rural Women's Assembly of Zimbabwe. Aluta, Rural Women's Assembly, aluta.
Aluta. Thank you, Comrade Sharon. Yeah.
Aluta.
No comment. As of now, let me call upon the Zambian sisters to share with us their discussions of yesterday's meeting. Zambian sisters. Zambia, where are you? Can I jump?
You can jump.
Okay, I'll go to Mozambique. As we wait for the networking in Ndola to improve, let us jump to Mozambique. Mozambique, where are you? Mozambique, woye! Mozambique, woye! Woye!
Mozambique,
woye!
orgulhosa de ser africana, meus antepassados todos nasceram aqui, filho legítimo do mundo, rainha, minha África, oie, oie. Tandi, sorry for taking your time, but the sisters wanted to sing. They want to feel that They are connected. Can you hear me?
Very well, my sister, you can
Can you hear me?
Very well, my sister, you can continue.
Okay. Our statement is not ready. Our statement is not ready yet because we didn't bring all the points together in time for today's presentation. But we will make it available as soon as it is ready. But I can share with you what are the discussions of this week with the rural women. The issues for us, first, the concentration reform that the process has been launched already. We are happy that we are included in the process, but we want free, prior, and informed consent. We don't want to be influenced. We want to feel free to bring out our demands and tell them how we want the policy to look like. The other issue is the issue of, sorry, I'm going back to my notes here. It's the gender-based violence which we are witnessing in these days, and it's getting worse every day. And also the militarism during these days of states of emergency because of COVID-19. We feel that the farmers do not have, how can I say, voice, and they don't also have space to come out and sell their produce, while the corporates, the multinationals, they can come in with food and sell in the markets, but our produce from small scale farmers, women, it's sitting there and we cannot bring those, the produce to the markets. And also the other issue that we would like our heads of states to know is the issue of FSIPs, how we small-scale farmers, the people who are bringing the food on the table do not benefit from FSIPs. We don't feel that we are there. Even the 10%, even though the 10% was declared and it was them that they decided that they should allocate that money to produce food, the small scale farmers, especially the rural women, do not benefit from that. And as a consequence, the produce is there in the rural areas. We cannot transport the produce to the cities, to the supermarkets, and to the village because the roads are in such a terrible situation that there are holes everywhere. And also we know that not all the produce, you can sell immediately. We have things like tomatoes, that they spoil easily, but we don't have nowhere to refrigerate this fresh produce. And also we would like to agro-process, but no means for that. In Mozambique, we rely on, rain to produce. If on that year there is no rain, also there is no produce at all. So that's how we would like to see the FSIPs, in our lives. We would like to have that support from the government, and we don't get that support. The other issue we would like to bring also, we would like to know from our governments why we should use their seeds and not our seeds. Because the experience we have as women who are farmers, we know that our indigenous seeds perform well even if there is no enough sufficient rain. But with these hybrid seeds that they bring to us, we still struggle, and also we must, spend a lot of money to buy all the pesticides and things that we don't need, we don't want, but we are forced to do so because our governments think that the better thing to give to small-scale farmers, women, are these hybrid seeds that they must distribute. And they go every year distributing these seeds in the communities. So we want to show our government that, hey, this is not the best way to go. We need them to look at our indigenous seeds, which, I mean, gives us life and keep us alive and keep us producing in the state that we are living now of climate changes. These are not things that are ready, but we are discussing and we want to bring them on our statement. Did I forget something? I don't know, but yeah, we will release it. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Flaida. I can see that the issues are the same from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and we continue with the struggle as rural women. We want representation. We want our voices to be recognized. We want to see where the 10% is going, and we want support. We want freedom. We want to be allowed to choose the kind of seed that we want to plant. And I can see on the chat box we have questions for Zimbabwe and questions for our sister Nancy. For Zimbabwe, the question is how is Zimbabwe responding or fighting corruption? And then we have that was from Sister Anna Ushamba. And then we have a colleague who is saying, I'm agreeing comprehensively with the comprehensive history back dated from slavery colonial project of controlling the commons, including agriculture. Nancy, how has the geopolitics of agriculture, food sovereignty, food security changed or not changed, especially in relation to women? That's your question, my sister Nancy. If you could then respond, because of time. Later, can I ask the respondents to respond in the chat box so that we have enough time for presentations? And then we had Comrade Norman. He was thanking Sharon on the issue of corruption, which is a function of systems and relationships. And it is a problem of power and authority, especially political power. And then we have Paula question to Nancy. We are seeing reversals of forced colonial land nationalization in some countries where this was undertaken. There are signs that capital is shifting from the strategies from large land grabs to contract farming. You mentioned it. How do you evaluate these shifts? Isn't there a danger of seeing greater conflicts emerging within and between communities? That is between those who will be incorporated, and some of these may benefit, and those who will be excluded. So if you could respond in the chat box. Thank you. Can I thank you, Flaida, for a very, very deep discussion on the issues that are affecting rural women in Mozambique. Can I call upon Zambia? Are you ready? Zambian sisters, are you ready? If not, I'm calling. Okay. Okay. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Maybe can I call upon Lesotho to share with us the outcome of their discussions? Lesotho.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair Madam. My name is Mpati Kugami. I'm representing Rural Women's Assembly, Lesotho. Yesterday, we had very tough discussion on visits and how they're benefiting us as Rural Women's Assembly. And we feel like our government has to do more, like subsidy programs or visits should benefit both small-scale farmers rather than the commercial farmers. We also need a process to acquire these subsidies to be decentralized. We demand participatory research before deciding on seeds to be subsidized, not only hybrids. Indigenous seeds should also be in the market, as currently the government only promotes the GMOs. We demand 10% of national budget to be allocated to agriculture as per Malabo Declaration. We also demand empowerment of extension workers. Lastly but not least, our government should support family farming and make sure that the power to feed ourselves is in our hands, not in the hands of the government. Thank you very much, sisters.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, sister. Let me call upon Swaziland, and then is South Africa getting ready. After South Africa, we have Namibia, Malawi, and then Zambia. We give you the last to speak, the last chance to speak.
Amandla.
Away to.
Thank you very much, sisters. This is Swaziland. We had our discussions yesterday. And because of time, I think we'll try and be very brief on what we came out with at the end. We said the first issue that is very critical right now is the COVID era, which is making it very, very difficult as is the plowing time. But because of COVID-19, the national budgets have been put away to look into COVID-19. And this is bringing difficulties for the women. Women are getting poorer and poorer every day. They're not even able to access health facilities. Their kids are vulnerable to being pregnant because they've stayed home for more than the 6 months that we are going for in all our countries. It therefore is critical for our governments to actually, because the programs that are being put to try and alleviate the problems that are coming to try and lift the issues of COVID-19 don't reach the rural women. We are therefore saying our governments must put women first in all their national agricultural agendas. They must put women first in all national agricultural agendas if women must win this war. We also looked at the Maputo Declaration. We said, whilst Maputo has given women 10% allocation, but our governments haven't, in particular the Swazi government, has not actually effected that. And we are calling, therefore, for a national summit that will actually ensure that the 10% is brought back to the women. A national summit of all women farmers where this 10% allocation will be talked about, will be allocated, and women will know that they definitely are going to benefit out of that summit. This will help the women to actually plan for the seed banks that we've been talking about for a very long time. This will help the women to actually bring up the indigenous seeds that we are saying we have talked about, but nobody seems to care. The summit will help us actually to elevate these issues in the country so that we have a voice that is being heard, not only by us, because I think many a times we talk to ourselves, but we are not listened to by our governments, by the people that are meant to. And this is why the capture of the agricultural sector by the transnationals is going on without any stop. We are also saying we want involvement of farmers, especially women, in policy formulation. We are saying there is commercialization that is going on and has taken away, even the little markets that women survive on. For instance, now in COVID-19, the government issued, to say we stop going out, we stop selling. But the multinationals were selling to us and they're making millions every day whilst we starve at home. We are saying policy should actually talk to GMOs because we are tired of these artificial produce. It is killing us. We are not getting the original, agricultural plants. We don't have nutrients in our bodies. We are being attacked by these diseases every day because we have no protection at all. We see industrialization even of the farm inputs and the farm equipment, which is killing us as well, the fertilizers. And this is why we are saying it is very critical that policies are pro-women, because we know we are the engines. In particular, we are the growers of the food of all the nations, because we have, in Swaziland, for instance, 75% of the communities or the population stays in rural areas. The women are the people that have these responsibilities on their shoulders, but no one seems to care, to want to help us. And I think that is where I can, for now, stop to try and make time for the 3 minutes that I was told we are given. We are saying no to GMOs, forward with indigenous seeds, forward.
Yes, no to GMOs, no. New issues are coming up. We are getting poorer and poorer because of COVID. And it's similar to what Sister Flaida said in terms of post-harvest losses in Mozambique. And same thing also happened in Zimbabwe when the lockdown was introduced. And as women, we can't travel. If you want to travel, you have to produce a letter. And sometimes even if you have the letter, you are denied access. So we are getting poorer and poorer as women because of poverty. And again, teenage pregnancies. It's a new problem that is arising because of COVID-19. And she also spoke of engendering the agricultural sector and the issue of inclusion of women in any decision making that has to be done in terms of agriculture in the region. Thank you so much, my sister. Let me call upon South Africa. South Africa, please let us stick to 3 minutes because we are running out of time. South Africa. South Africa, Can we move to Namibia? Namibia. Oh, okay. Namibia. Sisters. Malawi. Hello, is that Namibia? Sisters.
Namibia, oye!
Oye!
Maximum support! Namibia, oye! Maximum support! Maximum support!
Maximum support! Maximum support!
Maximum support!
Maximum support!
Maximum support!
Thank you, sisters.
Can you hear me, sister?
Yes, we can hear you. Continue.
Oh, how are you this morning, this afternoon, sister?
Hello, proceed, please.
Okay. Oh, before I could start, I just want to greet every sister in rural women and all around Namibia, all around the whole Africa. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Before I could start, I just want to give you a little background. In Namibia, around Erongo, let me see, with our agriculture. We don't produce our own food. Everything is coming from around the neighbor countries like South Africa, even Zimbabwe, Zambia. 99% of these are coming from there. We just importing. We don't produce them. Okay, we are consuming, and meaning consuming what we are producing apart from that one as a country, food security. We are trying for people to have a small garden behind their backyards. It's something that we don't even have in Namibia or in the rural women, especially rural women. All this will never happen if not concrete actions are taken place. And it's something that should be done, and I'm demanding. All things in 30 years, I cannot believe in 30 years from now up to now in Namibia, we still have to come and discuss this for this time now. Therefore, our following demands are these. We are demanding, no discussion, nothing. We are demanding. And our demands are as follows. Rehabilitation of boreholes, drilling of new boreholes, provision and accessibility of water to all residents in rural women for each and every house, with no discrimination of agenda. Even though Namibia is praised for a conservation effort, it must be noted that the current human-wildlife conflict is one of the best conservation. Apart from the danger of safety of people has become a conflict within agricultural sectors. Example, herders cannot look freely, the herders cannot look freely after their livestock as they are afraid of these wildlife animals. They have lost interest in livestock. Some elephants has extended their problematic behavior to domestic gardens. Hence, our following demands for cooperative efforts to the stakeholders, including government agencies, to remove jumbos from the rural area under no condition. I said under no condition. Area in our rural areas. The next demand, our next demand in rural areas, education and consultation. The rural areas of Namibia are vast and remote. Hence, we demand that any government programs and projects must be reached to each and every corner of Namibia, rural women, rural areas, wherever they live. And the implementation of these projects must be customs to the ground situation. We say this, cut and paste these projects in every 14 regions. I'm sorry, let me start that. The rural areas of Namibia are vast and remote. Hence, we demand that any government programs, projects must cover each and every region of Namibia. Reach every rural woman, rural areas, wherever she lives. And the implementation of these projects must be customs to the ground situation. We say this, cut and paste of this project. We demand this. Sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Namibia. Thank you so much. I can see we have got a question for Namibia in the chat box. Yeah, someone, Edmond Parici, is asking what are the challenges in production of on-food in Namibia? What is being done to counter the status quo? You can assist us respond in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you so much, sisters in Namibia. Let me call hello, bye-bye. Let me call up the sisters in Dole. I can see Mama Grace.
Yes,
I think
sure.
ready. Zambia, can you speak? I'm allowing you to speak at this time because it might be the time where the network is good in Zambia. So please speak.
Sisters.
Sister.
Hello. Let us try some other time. Hello.
And my other sisters are joining from their respective districts. In the country, in some provinces of our country, the women are vulnerable.
Hello, Zambia. We can hardly hear you. We can hardly.
I can get you.
Hello. Sorry
I
for
can
that.
get you, Tandy.
But we can't hear you. We cannot hear you. Let me give this opportunity to speak to South Africa, and then we can try again later. South Africa. South Africa, where are you?
Yeah, we are shouting. I'm shouting, turned on top of my voice.
It's not because of the volume of your voice, but it's because of the bandwidth or the network connections that are poor. You can try, Mama Grace. You can try again. So that we can hear it. We can't hear you. Malawi?
Tandy, I can hear you perfectly. Are you able to get me, Tandy?
Now I can hear you. We can't hear you now. Sisters. Hello. She's muted. Hello, Mama Grace, can you unmute?
Yeah. No, it's on unmute. I can hear you. It's you who can't get me. Let me just put it on the chat.
Okay. Yes. But now we are hearing you. You can proceed.
Okay. I was saying, as Zambia, we are having we face food crisis because we had a lot of floods in different provinces. And as Zambian women, because of the floods and the COVID, yes, the food crisis is looming. And then on the FISIP program, the program here in Zambia has started rolling. The women are depositing their contributions towards the FISIP packs. Now they've started. But the issues is that how many women are on the list of benefiting from the FISIP program? And then the other challenge is how many women have the money to even deposit because of the bad harvests that we had experienced in some areas.
Then we were saying that the women who are, how many women are going to benefit from this program? Is it reaching the intended beneficiaries? Those are the questions that we've been discussing, and these are the issues that we were seeing the government officials over to see that the women benefit from this program. And we will be monitoring. We had a meeting with the government officers from the Ministry of Agriculture to see that they give more time, because they had put a deadline, but then we were requesting for more time so that other women are able to benefit as well. And then this year, we are, as the Rural Women Assembly Zambia, we are purchasing a lot of indigenous seeds so that we are able to share and multiply, so that we replenish our seed banks, which were empty due to the bad harvest in the previous year. So this year, we are hoping, God willing, that we'll be able to share the seeds in Zambia for multiplication purposes, and possibly share with the region in your countries, Tandy. We are hoping we'll be able to do that this year. And we have bought some maize, some indigenous maize, and the other seeds like beans, which we are going to share for free this time, but next time they'll have to buy. For Zambia, for the moment, I think I can end there, because my other sisters might want to ask or put something on chat from their different districts. Thank you, Tandy.
Thank you, sister. Thank you so much. You were now loud and very clear. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have taken note of the key asks that you have said in terms of women accessing funds to deposit so that they get the FISP pack. Why can't they just give women? Yeah, thank you so much. Let me call upon Malawi. Malawi, Beatrice, Alice. Malawian sisters, where are you? Pirirani. Malawi, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Malawi, oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think are they connected? Okay, we cannot see Malawi. I think we should move on with our program. This is now an open session where we want to build our campaign from the discussions that we have been having. Oh, sorry, South Africa. South Africa. Anybody representing South Africa? It seems they are not with us. Maybe we can proceed, and then they will then send us their contributions through email. Yeah, as I was saying, that we want to start building our campaign because of time, we need to be proceeding. So I'm opening to contributions from anybody in terms of how we can build our campaign, given all the challenges that we are facing as rural women, we are facing as people of Africa, we are facing in terms of agriculture production, we are facing in the face of COVID-19. How do we build a campaign? Any suggestions, comments, or questions, you can show by way of raising your hands.
Wadzanai Msipa, I can see you on the screen. Do you want to speak? I want to see the list of participants. I want to see the whole list of participants.
Mama Tandy, can I speak?
Yes, Kia.
Hi, Mama Tandy. How's everyone? Maximum support.
Maximum support.
Support.
Maximum support.
Woo! I miss the mamas. Woo! Yo, I miss everyone so much. Oh, mamas. Oh, it's so good to see everyone, even though it's virtually. I miss you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sending all my love from cold and rainy Cape Town. But mamas, I was thinking maybe for us to start thinking about building campaigns and bringing things together. I think some of the demands that everyone has been making sort of link to two key areas of work that some of us have been working on. And I think we can think about seeing how we weave our demands together and put those demands and the actions around those two particular campaigns. So I think all the mamas have said that, look, we weren't consulted, we want to be involved in particular processes, but much more importantly, we want to be at the forefront of owning the kind of development that's been put forth and also making sure that our indigenous knowledge is put at the forefront of any other thing, right? So one of the campaigns in which we're working on, and I know that many mamas have been involved in that, and maybe we can also start strategizing on how we strengthen and unfold that, is the right to say no. I remember in Tanzania that we developed other iterations of the right to say no, but now I forget, but we're playing around saying that ilungelo yakuthi cha. So so basically then it's around expanding the tenets of free, prior and informed consent, but strengthening the consent elements, mamas. So saying that we want to be able to determine which seeds are being used. We want to be able to determine which legislation is being put forth. And we want to be able to say, okay, if we're determining that particular legislation, if we're determining those particular seed laws, then we can determine the parameters in which it's going to unfold. It would be interesting for us to see if we can take different case studies, mamas, from different areas, whether it be struggles in Namibia, Swaziland, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and profiling those particular struggles and framing them and capturing them through the demand for our consent rights. So if we're saying that we're going to be fighting corruption in Zimbabwe, right? And if we're saying that there's been a lack of consultation in terms of particular laws being put forth, this is then our way for us to demand the right to say no. So next time funny little politicians or government officials come through, you're like, we're not interested in taking part in your funny thing, because firstly, what you're putting forth wasn't free. You didn't ask us. We weren't really informed, and actually, we don't want it. This is what we want. So, and that's what the right to say no is about. And then what we can look at, mamas, is that through this whole process of the farmer input subsidy program, we can identify and look at particular states and companies that we are going to see if we can pin and hold accountable. That then takes our campaign and our strategies for campaigning from a local level to a global level. And the global element of the ideas around the campaign can then be around the UN binding treaty for business and human rights. There are some folks who are part of the Southern African campaign to dismantle corporate power, and you're also a part of the campaign, that are working at a UN level to unfold a treaty that is going to hold businesses, corporations like Monsanto, Parmalat, Bayer, all corporations that are either involved in agricultural extractive practices and also just the broader other extractive practices like taking from the economy or even taking from the earth itself, we're wanting to push and demand that we're needing to be holding them accountable. So the ideas could be maybe developing a international court. Mamas will know most, there's the International Criminal Court, and then there's also the International Court of Justice. But both those courts only try human beings or states. There's no court around that tries and holds companies accountable. So when we're demanding for the binding treaty, we'll then be demanding also saying, let's establish a court to hold these corporations, right, accountable. Mama Nancy was saying that we must also look and unfold and zoom into the previous colonial powers. And we're still held in the chokehold by these colonial powers who have then morphed and shaped into different corporations, right? So maybe we can start thinking that at a national and local level, we can start unfolding and shaping our demands within the prism of the right to say no, and making sure that we strengthen and we shape the narrative. Because I think many people will think the right to say no is about mining, but it's actually not even about mining. It's actually about saying that we want to determine what we want in our locale. And the demands that mamas have been making are in essence speaking about that. And then at a global level, when we're demanding for our right to say no, we can then make sure that the right to say no is then placed in the binding treaty and amplifies our demands at a global level. So if we're trying a particular company in Zambia, we can then find that there are other mamas in Latin America or there are other mamas in Asia Pacific who are facing the same nonsense that we're going through. And maybe we can come together to not only show people-to-people solidarity in the region, but show people-to-people solidarity across the world through the binding treaty process. Those are just my ideas, mamas, but thanks.
Thank you, our daughter Kia. That was powerful. She's saying we have the right to say no, and we can build our campaign around that. The issue of free, prior, informed consent. Sister Sharon was saying that we were never consulted when the Pumvuza was being begged in the offices. So we have, as Zimbabwean sisters, the right to say no, because we were not consulted. And the other sisters were talking about the issue of prescription for the hybrid varieties under the FISP program. And as sisters, our daughter is encouraging us to come up with a campaign to say no under the free, prior, informed consent. And I also liked it when she said that internationally we have a criminal court, we have criminal courts, we have a court to hold governments or states accountable, but we don't have a court for holding companies that are infringing on our rights, holding them to account. We need also to start lobbying for that. We can start lobbying for the incriminating of companies that are bringing seeds that are causing damage on our seed varieties here, or even chemicals that are doing harm on us. We can do a lot in terms of building up campaigns. Yeah, can I have other contributions as we try to build our campaigns as a Rural Women's Assembly? Anybody? I cannot see a hand. Well, I cannot see a hand. And then in conclusion, I just want to ask our comrade sister Nancy Kachingwe to try and sum up and also respond to comments from the chat box, and also to to assist us in terms of the campaign that we are trying to build as Rwa sisters. And on the campaign, my other contribution might be, I want to agree with the sister who are saying we need to also campaign around the cancellation of debt for African countries. Sister Nancy.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting to speak again, but I think I responded to the questions I was asked in the comments. But I just and I agree with all the demands that are being made. They are really important. I think it's really a question of framing and understanding. First of all, on the one hand, having a real understanding of the neoliberal project and what it's really about. Some of us have been seeing things happening for a long time and always thought, yeah, surely it's not that bad. We're not going back, we're moving forwards. But I think where we are now is really telling us that we're going into a new phase of what is really a very dangerous and problematic imperialist project. And it's less subtle, it's quite violent, and it's taking no prisoners, as it were. and we have to understand it. And I have also added in the box that in addition to the right to say no, free and prior informed consent, we need to think about this as this is a political struggle. This is not just, it's beyond even, it's really about the right to self-determine, the right to self-determination and the right to development. And if we take out our UN charters, I think we must have that front and center about what the right to self-determination means. And wherever it's being undermined, we must point to it. And I think it really gives our issues a legitimacy and frames them in a way that a lot of people will understand beyond the demands around food sovereignty, that these are issues of self-determination. Our parents, our grandparents, even those of us who are younger, have all been part of struggles and suffered across the region. So I think it's really important to hold on to those gains. And finally, I mentioned one thing on the World Program. The Food and Agriculture Organization organized World Census and Agriculture. I went through the document, I've given the link. It's quite interesting because they did gather data around land holdings, sizes of land holdings. Some countries gave data around land holdings and the gender division between those. I think countries gave what they could, so it's not all the same. And they're starting a new round now. It would be quite good to try and see, because that's where data is being gathered and it really reveals quite a lot. I think South Africa, for example, only gave commercial agricultural data. They didn't want to cover the other things because the disparities would be too huge. But if you look at the Namibian one, your eyes will really pop about how much of land is in such few hands. So I would just say, as a sort of, it's a bit more technical, but in terms of trying to make sure that gender issues are being counted and lobby governments around that as they participate, those gender dimensions in that census are going to be looked at. And it's just one policy tool that helps us strengthen our case in terms of our evidence base. But that is where you'll find some really good data around what's happening in those issues. But I wish you luck, and I'm looking forward to joining you in whatever next phases there are. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Nancy. Let me call upon our sister Zakiti. She wants to read a statement on behalf of the Rural Women's Assembly. Yeah, Sister Zakiti, can you come forward and read the statement? And then after the statement, I might want to give one last chance to Meshia to give concluding remarks. Over to you, Zakiti.
Thank you, Sister. The statement goes, it's on the People's Dialogue and the Rural Women's Assembly on Southern Africa, calls for an end to Zimbabwe's maladministration. In this global pandemic, no country is spared from the devastating that COVID-19 has left it. Its trail continues to contribute. The Zimbabwean situation is worse and its citizens are more vulnerable because of the poor healthcare system, corruption, and political instability. All this caused by the ruling ZANU-PF party. However, the rule of law was put under more pressure with the recent stripping of citizens' freedom of media, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and the right to information, as well as the basic right to life, with an ailing healthcare system that has seen the deaths of innocent pregnant women and children. These rights are not just nationally guaranteed. This violation we've seen in Zimbabwe are also a breach of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the 2007 African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. However, the Zimbabwe government is taking COVID-19 as an opportunity to weaken the opposition, amend the constitution, manipulate the justice system, to pass controversial judgment and ban protests. An alarming surge in human rights violation and arbitrary arrest and national curfew has been imposed to try and thwart the planned 31 July peaceful protests. This has seen excessive heavy presence of the security agents, for instance, army and police. Hopewell Chino, a freelance journalist who was exposing corruption by cabinet ministers and MSN Nagwagwa's family, was arrested in July and is constantly denied bail. Armies fear he might be poisoned in prison. 2 days ago, a Harare magistrate banned Hopewell's lawyer, Beatrice Mtetwa, from representing him. The arrest of Hopewell Chinono and the 31st protest convener Jacob Karivume, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, who also being denied bail, follow a pattern and abductions and torture of activists over the past couple of months. In March, government adopted a group of women over the past couple of months. In March, government adopted a group of women activists from the opposition MDCA in Warren Park and severely tortured them before dumping them on the outskirts of Harare. There are a lot of soft threats targeted towards human rights defenders and civil society organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, sisters. I'll call upon Meshia to give us some concluding comments or remarks. Thank you.
Sorry, sister. I wanted Sister Ronelle to scroll down, then I continue.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Sorry, you can proceed.
As the Rural Women's Assembly of Southern Africa and the People's Dialogue, we strongly condemn the abuse of power that persists in Zimbabwe. We cannot stand as lives of innocent women and children are lost at the hands of the self-serving, corrupt, and ill-managed state. These deaths are not only a result of COVID-19, but deaths suffered from poor service in hospitals and crashing economy, which has struck for many months. Increased joblessness and crashing economy has seen most of the people of Zimbabwe going to bed hungry. We are concerned that while Zimbabwe government carries a begging bowl when it comes to public health, the same government is looting hundreds of millions through procurement scandals, of which the most notable in the 60 million drugs international deal that figured in President Mnangagwa's family and SADC Health Minister Obadiah Moyo. This means Zimbabwe problem is not shortage of money, but rather corruption by the ruling elites and a culture of impunity where no one is ever held accountable. We call on President Cyril Ramaphosa in his capacity as a chair of the African Union to deploy another special envoy to Zimbabwe comprising of elders from all over our region to present the concerns of the people of Zimbabwe. The nominated names for such an envoy include H.E. Mama Graça Machel, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, former President Joaquin Chissano, former President Botswana Ian Khama, former Minister Ronnie Kasril. The crisis in Zimbabwe affects the entire region, hence the need for SADC to step out efforts to make connective efforts to understand the challenges women and children in the state endures and to a resolution that will continue to see the mobility of Zimbabwe to restore its place as Africa's breadbasket, not to exchange visits by political parties. Please call up, sister. Hello, Ronel. Your signing of this petition helps our call as the Rural Women's Assembly of Southern Africa to end hunger, needless deaths, and abuse of power in Zimbabwe. Continue scrolling, sister.
My sister, this is the furthest you can scroll. So maybe if I make it smaller, it will work.
Okay.
Does that help? Whoops.
Okay, let me read it from my phone.
Sure.
I'm reading it.
Read it from your phone.
It from my phone. You're signing out.
Hello, sisters. I think what you need to do is to share the statement with other sisters for their signatures. And Mesha, can I give you just 2 minutes to say concluding remarks? Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Hello, sister.
Sisters. Sister Mesha, Comrade Mesha. Over to you, Comrade Mesha. I think she's not available. Let me take this opportunity to thank you all for participating in this very, very important discussion that we had. And I hope we continue with the struggles. And from here, I think we have now ideas of how we are going to craft our campaigns around the issue of free, prior, informed consent in the areas of the seed that we want to do, in the areas of women's access to land, in the areas of maybe looking at the other issues that we looked at, COVID, the post-recovery plan. We want free, prior, informed consent, and we also, as rural women, we are saying we want inclusion, social inclusion, and meaningful representation of women in all decision-making institutions. We want our voices to be recognized, so we will be able to craft our campaigns along those areas. Thank you so much, sisters, for participating and for your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, sisters. Till the next SAPSN.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Sisters.
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 Sisters.